Hi everybody, it's Christy, your digital technology librarian, and we are already at the weekend, so of course that means I am back with another set of recommendations for you for this Film Rec Friday. This weekend we are going to focus in on animated features, and I've tried to do a really broad selection of recommendations this time around. Some are a little more kid-friendly, whereas others are definitely more grown-up centric. So please do check these out. Hopefully something will be able to be a good fit for you or for your family. As always, these recommendations come from our 3 video services, and those are CleveNet's Overdrive, Hoopla Digital, and Canopy. As long as you have a Milan-Berlin Library card, you'll be able to access all of these recommendations entirely for free. So please do check out these recs and the thousands of other video files that are available for you through these services. So without any further ado, let's get to those recommendations. Our first 2 recommendations both come from CleveNet's Overdrive, but before I dive into those, let me just do a quick reminder that there are a ton of animated language learning videos available on Overdrive as well. These are great for kids. They are introductory beginners classes within language skills for Chinese, Spanish, French, a ton of other languages as well, that just sort of introduce like different kinds of words to your children, but they're also great for brushing up when you're an adult who hasn't maybe spoken French in, say, a decade and a half. And even just those little jump starts really help to get like that reverse memory going. So I definitely recommend checking those out, whether or not you just want to brush up on something, or if you want to introduce yourself or your families to new languages. Definitely check out CleveNet Overdrive's offerings because there are a ton of them. So with that, let's dive into the recommendations. The first of which is a beautiful animated film called Long Way North. Now, Long Way North is a French-Dutch feature that we do have the English language track to. So if you're not a subtitle fan, no worries there. You will hear the English dub track on it. So and it's really well done too. So that's great. Long Way North is this hauntingly beautiful feature that follows the story of Sasha, a young Russian girl in Tsarist Russia, and her impassioned attempts to find out what's happened to her explorer grandfather. Now, the film starts with her saying goodbye to her grandfather, who's leaving on a journey to discover and explore a route to the North Pole. Years go by and he's never heard from again. And so while he's previously been this lauded adventurer, suddenly there are factions within the government that want to sort of tarnish his memory, who want to have everyone see him in a different light from what they have. And it's very important to this young girl that that does not happen. So she eventually goes out into the world to try and figure out where he and his crew ended up. And this movie is definitely, it's PG rated, so it's certainly acceptable for kids, but it is a really deep journey that this girl goes on. You know, she has to break with her family briefly in order to go out into the world. And, you know, she has to rely on herself. She has to be independent. And it's a really gripping story. I mean, first of all, the art's fascinating because it's not like the CGI or standard cell animation that we're used to. There's almost this sort of tissue paper collage nature to it that really evokes this dreamlike quality to the vast majority of the film, you know, and I think that certainly adds to the mood of the entire movie. That beautifully gripping story, You absolutely get caught up in the emotions. It doesn't matter that it's an animated feature. Um, and you definitely get caught up in her relationship with her grandfather, and how close that connection was. So, it's a very sophisticated film, but it's certainly accessible regardless of age, too. So, I would definitely recommend this for slightly older kids and certainly for adults. Um, you won't be sorry if you're looking for something that's definitely a very heart-centric film. Check this one out. You will definitely love it. My second recommendation comes from Clevenet's Overdrive, and it's the Japanese anime In This Corner of the World. It is Japanese language, so there are English subtitles, but I think the story definitely transcends any language barrier that there might be. So it follows the story of Suzu, this young woman who, and this is a very important plot point, but not a spoiler, loves and is very skilled at drawing. Now, Suzu marries a young man and she moves from her hometown of Hiroshima, and she moves to his family's home in Kure. Now, what's interesting about this film is we get this ground level view of both pre and post war Japan. She leads this very quiet life in pre war Japan, and the movie is slow and engrossing and sort of very slice of life. We see her relationship with her new husband's family develop, especially this very close bond that she develops with her young niece. We see her love for drawing, and we see that skill really get captured as she draws this new life that she has. And when suddenly the realities of war strike, they strike very hard, and it's almost jarring, and it's supposed to be. That's how we're supposed to feel. So, we really feel how difficult her struggles and her very new situation are. Um, and, those two sides of the story are so striking. You definitely get vibes of like Grave of the Fireflies, if you've seen that, which is also another incredible film. Uh, but those similarities are more about like the anti-war aspect of wartime Japan than they are of anything else, and sort of those quiet moments that you do get than a copycat or a carbon copy version. Um, and the fact that it's such an emotionally evocative film, you absolutely get caught up in her story and her family's story. Uh, and it's very difficult to watch in places. I won't shy away from that. Just like Grave of the Fireflies, or really most wartime films, you go through those moments where it doesn't matter that it's an animated feature. You are definitely put in those moments, and I think it's good that it's hard to watch. It's supposed to be. Uh, the animation is absolutely gorgeous. It is this lovingly hand drawn style of cell animation, that I think there's a depth to it that I think we lose a lot of times in the CGI style animation. So, you absolutely have that full range of beauty that comes with that hand drawn cell style. So, I cannot recommend this one enough. Uh, Definitely for grown-ups and older kids. Um, if you and your family have seen Grave of the Fireflies, they definitely can handle this one as well. It is hard to watch, like I mentioned, in parts, but it is a really, really phenomenal movie in the end. So, strongly recommended. Please do check it out. My second set of recommendations all come from Hoopla Digital Services. And the first recommendation of those two is the Pokemon first movie. if you're someone my age, you probably watched a lot of the original series, and I know a lot of younger people who got into Pokemon Go in recent years, out of curiosity's sake, started to watch the original series and also got really engaged in that. Now, if you know that original series and that voice cast, you will know the voice cast for the movie as well. Uh, I do think that this is definitely an accessible entry point into the Pokemon series. This movie has a lot of depth to it that, you don't necessarily expect from this little adventure story about pocket monsters. Um, the meat of the story follows this weaponized uh, Pokemon, who, of course, is commissioned by Team Rocket. Uh, and the reality is that this story is pretty dark. If you think about it, he is designed to be a weapon. He has no idea that that's his job. He has no idea. He's just this innocent thing. So he has to struggle with what he's really supposed to be, what his existence means. I think that's a pretty existential question for anyone, let alone a pocket monster. um, and there's a lot of depth to the story, and it's all from the Pokemon universe. So again, a nice little entry point. You of course don't necessarily know the original characters if you do just start watching this, but I think again you'll get drawn into the storyline. If you have watched the other parts of the series, this one's a really great extension of it. We do have our three main characters come in. We have all of our favorite Pokemon that get featured time in this one as well. So in addition to this really nice storyline that goes really deeply into things, there's a ton of action. There's all of the familiarity that you get with the original series, all in a full-length feature time frame. So please do check out Pokemon the first movie, whether you're an old fan, a new fan, or someone who's totally new to the series. I think it's a definitely great addition to your viewing list. So definitely recommend it on that front. As for my second title, this one is definitely for adults. It's called Jinro, the Wolf Brigade. Now, this is in English language, so again, no worries about subtitles or anything like that, but it is a Japanese production, and it is dark. And I mean dark. It's gritty, it's got this noir vibe to it, and it's fantastic. I really, really love this one. It's this gripping animated tale of an alternate post-war Japan. And it follows these dangerous machinations between rival, I guess, police groups is what you would consider them. Um, and I just thought the story was so interesting that it would have definitely made a phenomenal live action feature, which they actually did make a live action version of this in South Korea. So someone else thought the storyline was interesting enough to do so. Um, it blends, like I said, this noir vibe uh, with some science fiction and, a ton of action. It actually has a little bit of like Blade Runner ness to it. It, of course, as I mentioned, is sort of an alternate history post-war Japan, so it's nothing to do with any futuristic story or setting, but there's still this dark, gritty vibe to it that I absolutely thought was so good. These rival police units plotting against one another. There are a ton of twists and turns. There's this conflicted anti-hero that we follow, and a young woman who gets caught up in these machinations. It's just a really, really engrossing movie, and I strongly recommend checking it out. The filmmakers do a phenomenal job with that atmospheric mood where everything is tense. There are no moments to breathe. It's always what's happening next. Um, and that relationship between those two main characters, uh, we see so much development in such a short time, because it's not like these characters knew each other before. They just meet within the time frame of the film. So you get this very full, complex, complicated relationship, and it's just a fascinating watch. Please do, if you like noir film, if you like action, if you like dark stories, check out Jinro the Wolf Brigade. You will not regret it. Excellent film. Now, my last two recommendations both come from our Canopy service, but before I get to those, let me just say that there are a ton of amazing animated titles that are available on Canopy, far more than I could ever cover in 10, 20, 30 Film Rec Fridays. So if you love animation, please do check some of these out. They have both long form and short form films. Um, a lot of the short form films are these huge, critically acclaimed titles, some of which were nominated or even won Academy Awards, that I had never had access to until I had access to the Canopy service, simply because they don't put a lot of these obscure short films on DVD, so it's hard to find them. So please do, again, check these out. They're amazing, and this is a great place to find them because, again, all totally free with your library card. So with that, let's get to these last two recommendations, the first of which is Sita Sings the Blues. Now, I first saw Sita a handful of years ago when it first came out, and I remember thinking, this is so cool. I have never seen animation or a story told this way. I love this. Now, I just rewatched it this last weekend, and I got those same excited feelings watching it again, because it really is such a unique story that they tell, and the way that they tell it is just so interesting. Now, they describe themselves as the greatest breakup story ever told, or at least I think that's the tagline, which is fantastic. And it's this animated musical romantic comedy drama. And what makes all that super cool is that it's actually an incredibly original retelling adaptation of the Ramayana. Now, for those who may not be super familiar, the Ramayana is this Sanskrit epic from ancient India. It's very, you know, epic in its scope. Like, it tells this massive story. It usually focuses in on the male characters, because a lot of stories of the time did that. And this absolutely does not do that. I mean, you get the same thread of storyline, but it focuses in on Sita, and she's just amazing. She's fun, she's sassy. It's a very contemporary retelling, and it's just a really good time. It's about 80 minutes long, and it feels like minutes go by. So you have this very stylized storyline, and then you have bits of 1920s jazz music blended in. And it doesn't sound like it would work, but it 100% does. And I have no way to explain why it does, but it's just really interesting. And of course, you do have some like very traditional instrumentation going on in the background as well. And they just flow together. It's very, very cool. The animation has sort of a puppetry, like a flash animated puppetry vibe to it as well. And the colors are just so vibrant and beautiful. I can't think of anything you can really compare it to. That's how interesting and original this whole thing is. So please, if you like music, if you like um, adaptations that are well done, please check out Sita Sings the Blues. It's amazing. It really, really is. My very last recommendation for this week is called The Sandcastle, and it's this 14-minute short with no dialogue whatsoever, that is also quite odd and interesting in its own way. Now, the Sandcastle actually won the Best Animated Short Oscar back in the 1970s, I believe, 1978. Um, and it was created by using this sand animation and sand covered foam puppets. I'm a sucker for stop motion animation in general, but this really sort of blends so many arts together. It's a very simple storyline. There is this sort of spontaneously created Sandman who then creates many other little sand creatures, and it's all about how they interact with one another and how they build the world around them. Um, it's not complex or anything like that. It's not a surprising storyline either. It's just a technically fascinating film to watch. I think that's the aspect that I really got caught up in, was the technical side of things. How did they build all of these little creatures? How did they film them? How did they animate them? Um, and it's 14 minutes of like technical fascination. If you've ever been interested in stop motion, I 100% would say check this out. Uh, the music is quite nice, and the animation for the time was really really well done. So please, again, do check out the Sandcastle. If for no other reason than for the technical experience, it's really cool. It's really well put together. So um, definitely recommended. Now, that's going to be it for this week's recommendations. As always, if there's an animated title that you're watching that we haven't mentioned that you think other people would like to see, please do mention it in the comments. We're always happy to try other shows as well. So, with that, please do have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next week. Bye.